Hi again then guys, and welcome to the 6th installment of my online sport mode highlights in, of course, my online career for GT Sport in particular. And if you are new to this series, maybe this episode 6 is your first time you've watched, I would strongly recommend checking out the previous 5 because they don't take a huge amount of time to watch. You can click through at the end of this one to that playlist anyway and watch them, but it basically covers literally every single race I've done in sport mode so far, with various issues that you guys have had that I've also seen, talking about how those issues could be maybe improved on, penalties, that kind of stuff. But as far as this one, this was kind of a mini challenge that a couple of you guys issued to me, where instead of doing what I usually do, which is pick my car, go out on whatever track it is, do my qualifying time, and then more often than not I kept on being put in lobbies where I was either the fastest on the grid, more often than not, or at least like second, third, fourth, and never really any lower than that. So that takes away a lot of the challenge when you're already starting in the lead. However, I have also said that I'm more of a chaser than I am a leader. I'm very good at catching up with somebody who is better than me in a race or just ahead of me, rather than maintaining my personal pace when I am in the lead. I tend to be more consistent when I'm in the lead, but I'm not necessarily as fast when I'm in the lead, and that's probably similar for a lot of people. So for these particular events, I wanted to do just that, to not qualify at all. Now, not qualifying isn't a huge issue for me going into the event. It wasn't something that I was particularly concerned about. However, what concerned me more is that meant I didn't have any practice on the track, and that to me is far more important than where you qualify, because the main reason why I do those practice events before the race itself is not to be first on the grid, because you can never tell if you're going to be first on the grid or not. It depends entirely on what lobby the game decides to put you in. So for me, it was just about getting a feel for my particular car, be it usually the Scirocco that I'm using here, or the Beetle in Group 3 of course, to just feel the parameters of the car, feel the limits that I can push it to with my driving style, just to essentially give me that leg up to go into the event and know what I'm doing, instead of pushing the car too hard. Or, on the other hand, not pushing the car as hard as it can go and maybe being too slow because of that. So that to me was far more of a challenge than just not having first place on the grid. I can work with that, but not having the practice is definitely a bigger disadvantage for me. Now, compound that with the fact that I actually don't like Willow Springs that much. I should have probably chosen to do this on a different event or a different day to give myself more of an advantage, but at least it's a full-on challenge when I do it on a track that I'm not really a fan of. And there are a number of reasons why I'm not a fan of it. It's very easy to get pushed off the road, it's very easy to overcook a corner. Even the style of the track I'm not a fan of. As I've said before, I like really long technical circuits like Le Mans and the Nürburgring, where if you think about it, most of the corners are very sharp, so there's a lot of heavy braking and manhandling the steering wheel, whereas with Willow Springs it's more about throttle control with these long sweeping corners. I'm not really a fan of that. And I would definitely say that out of all of the events that I've done in career mode, this is probably the first track where the Scirocco does not feel like it has an advantage, because on every other track that I've used it on, it feels perfect. And even when you race against the AI, they almost always have the Scirocco out in first place, so they give it a lot of respect as well. On this track though, rear-wheel drive is definitely an advantage which crucially I did not have, and you'll see stuff like the Corvettes, the Mustangs, in particular a ton of Toyota 86s with huge advantages going through the corners with the small lightweight package, very compact, much more compact than like a Viper or a Veyron, and also that rear-wheel drive giving them so much more turn in particular that first long sweeping right on this track. So when you add all of these things together, no qualifying time, no practice on the track, the disadvantage of a front-wheel drive car, and a circuit which I'm not a fan of, it was a perfect storm for a personal challenge. Now, although I'm not going to feature probably every second of the 3 events, and if I do, it will probably be sped up so that we can get it all in, you can see all of the stuff that went down, maybe like 2 times speed or something like that. It was an interesting 3 races. I didn't want to do more than 3, because of course the video would end up being crazy long and also a little bit too repetitive. So I kept it to 3, started from the back all 3 times with that same Scirocco. In the first and the second event, I believe at least the guy in first place was the same guy, a British guy in a Jaguar F-Type. He did pretty well. I mean, I believe he won, I'm not sure though. And I'm sure some of the other people were doubling up as well, but I didn't really notice. I never take too much notice of people's names when I'm in the race. So how did the races go down? Well, of course, I started as a B and S rank driver. I ended the 3 also as a B and S rank driver, so no improvement or drop there. I'm about halfway through the points as far as B ranking goes, so about halfway towards A at this point. These races certainly didn't help me much as far as that, of course, because by definition, the higher the result you get, the better you're going to do. And I actually had the best result of all 3 events in the first race here. So how did it go down? Well, in the first race, I started in 15th. I believe one person might have quit or got disconnected instead of starting 16th. Maybe there wasn't 16 people, I don't recall. But then the race itself was pretty good. There was a lot of close contact in all 3 events. The people who were maybe a little bit more of a dirty driver sometimes were pretty obvious. You could see those pretty easily. Some people got out of the way, some people preferred to hog the road. Sometimes maybe I'm guilty of that. And again, you can never tell what my internet issues might be doing. Still trying to sort that out and solve it. Trying to get that wired connection sorted as well. But as far as that first event went, as I said, I did start in 15th. I actually managed to climb 11 places and get all the way up to 4th. So that was my best result of all 3 events, and I was actually pretty happy with that, considering that the car didn't feel great on this track. As I said, I do not like the circuit, and also one of the biggest issues that I had was it was such a short race. I mean, it still took 10 minutes, but I felt like there should have been a 6th lap even. Maybe I wouldn't have got the victory, but it just felt like 5 laps went so quickly that there was not that much time for overtaking, especially when Willow Springs is the kind of circuit where you pretty much all spend a lot of the same time going at the same speed, so overtaking is very difficult. So as far as the ending results of the event, as I said, I finished 4th, which was my best result of the 3 events, and the best lap was a 1:17.6. My best lap was a 1:17.7. So I didn't mind coming 4th, because as you could see from the laps, I was slower. Again, that was without qualifying or testing on the track at all, so again, I wasn't too bothered by that, and I wasn't too disappointed with it either. To be only 0.1 second off of the pace of the leader's best time, that's pretty good for me overall. So that was how the first race went down. Now, as far as the next event, we had that same Jaguar in first place again. I started in 16th this time, which is actually the lowest on the grid of all 3. I started 15th in the first and the last race. This one, obviously, we had the full grid of 16 people. In this one, as I already said, the best I finished was in the first one, so of course I didn't finish 4th again. I finished 7th overall in this event, so I climbed 9 places, which I was still happy with. The second and third event, if I recall correctly, had a little bit more contact back and forth with me and other drivers, with people blocking each other and maybe giving some, let's say, love taps back and forth, like back off mate kind of thing. And as far as the best lap comparisons in this one, the best lap on the grid did improve. In the previous race, as I said, it was a 1:17.6. In this one, it was a 1:17.2. My best lap, on the other hand, did not improve. It was a 1:17.7 again, and a 1:17.7 in the previous event. However, the interesting thing in this event was, believe it or not, I got a clean race star. In the first event, I didn't get anything, just, of course, the overall, however many points you'd get for the driver rating, I guess, and just moved up the ranking, basically, from 15th to 4th. In this one, though, somehow I managed to get that clean event, as I said, which is not very easy to do when you're working from the back of the pack, and finished overall, as I said, in 7th. So not quite as good as the first one, but still I was happy with climbing, more than halfway up the grid overall, again on a very short time, like 10 minutes or less, on a track that I didn't like that much, once again. So what about the last event? Well, the last event, as I said, started 15th instead of 16th. The Jag was not in the event this time, but I believe maybe 1 or 2 of the people had been in before. I'm not sure though, as I said, I didn't take much notice of the names. But in this one, I actually improved over the previous event. I did not get the clean race bonus this time, but I did finish 6th instead of 7th. So overall, between the 3 events, I got a 4th, a 7th, and a 6th, starting from 15th, 16th, and 15th again. So I was actually pretty happy with that overall. I finished more than halfway up the grid every time. So I was pretty happy with that, considering that I've never done this form of racing in sport mode before, and I also didn't mind losing, because as I've said in a previous episode, if somebody is genuinely quicker than me, even if it's only one person, that doesn't bother me, because to me they deserve the win if they are a quicker driver, whereas if they were like half a second or a second slower than my best lap, that's when it would kind of annoy me. Now, speaking of those best laps, I actually did get another star in this event, not for the clean race, but for the fastest lap. I actually finally got the fastest one on the grid, and funnily enough, even if that previous Jaguar and the various others had been in the race again, I still beat the times that they posted in both of the previous events. So the first one I did a 1:17.7, second one a 1:17.7, this one I did a 1:17.1. So I actually beat both of the best laps from the previous two events, which were a 1:17.6 and then a 1:17.2, then my 1:17.1 again in this one. So the next best one, as you'll see just before I crossed the line, was a 1:17.4 before I beat it. So beat it by about 0.3 of a second or so. So I was actually pretty happy with that, and it allowed me to get that fastest lap star. So I did get 2 stars out of these 3 races, which ain't bad considering that I started from the back of the pack. The clean race bonus is definitely the most difficult thing to get, so again I was very happy with getting that. Fastest lap I did not expect to get, so I was pleasantly surprised with that one, and it's not too surprising that if I was going to get that one, that it would happen in the third event, because of course I've done the race twice, I've got more practice, I know what the car's going to feel like a bit more, and ultimately I did improve by 1 place, but also there was 1 person less in the race, so it kind of evens out, finishing 6th out of 15, so I improved by 9 places again. So ultimately I got 1 clean race, 1 fastest lap, and I moved up 11 places in the first event, 9 places in the second event, and 9 places in the third event. So ultimately, as far as a personal challenge goes, I was actually really happy with this. It was a lot of fun to work from the back. The only thing that I would have changed, honestly, out of this whole thing, even if everything else remained the same, which of course is impossible, but if theoretically all of those outcomes remain the same, I would just have preferred if this had happened on a different track, because I just don't care about Willow Springs. It's not that I don't like the track or like hate the track, I just couldn't care less. To me it's such a simple, really short, basic circuit that I've never had that much love to it, or love for it, because to me there's just not much to the track. It's very simple. Now I know a lot of people do love it, but it's just not for me. The disadvantage of the front wheel drive was very clearly there for me on this one, and I'm certainly not blaming it on the car by any means. It's never the car's fault. So overall, I actually really enjoyed these 3 events. It's definitely something that I'm going to do again in future, starting from the back, maybe try not qualifying at all, but in future I think I might try it where I'm a bit more comfortable with the track, because when it comes to Willow Springs, I really did give myself a huge disadvantage by not practicing, because I barely drive on Willow Springs at all. So ultimately, it was a very enjoyable 3. If you have other challenges that you'd like me to do, then of course you could slap those down below. And for those of you who enjoy this series, and there are plenty of you actually, it's becoming pretty popular, kind of a little cult series on this channel, then I hope you enjoyed this one as well. It was certainly something very different to the previous experiences. Of course, it has severely affected my win ratio, which was previously, I believe, 94.4% victories. So, of course, that is shattered now compared to what it was. So, you know, I gave up my win ratio for the sake of this episode, so I hope you guys enjoyed it for that. Of course, the win ratio isn't the be-all and end-all anyway, so I no longer have the 94%, and I'll probably never get that back again now. But hey, who cares? It's all part of the fun. It's more of a challenge than just starting at the front of the grid. And to be honest with this one, even if I had qualified, based on how quick the other people were, I don't think I would have started from first place anyway. Maybe in the third event, if I could have got that 1:17.1 lap, based on how the race itself went. But even then, I don't know, maybe second or third, maybe fourth on the grid, but I don't think I would have qualified first anyway. Starting at that position may have changed the outcome. Maybe I would have maintained first place or got it, especially in that first event where I was definitely catching up. Even though I was half a second off the best lap, I did seem to be making up time on those leaders, but ultimately, that's it for this particular installment. Of course, I hope to see you next time in whatever that one will be. And for now, as always, thanks for watching.